All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Tech Tuesday. My name is Vanessa, and we're going to be discussing our new Microsoft Copilot Enterprise AI companion tool that we just announced last week. We're really excited to bring this to you and discuss it today. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know I am recording today's session. So if you miss anything and want to review it again, or even share it with some of your colleagues who may be interested in using AI on campus, you'll get a follow-up email after this with a link to the recording, as well as some of our slides and links to how to actually log into Copilot and use it for yourself. If you have any questions at any time during the session, please feel free to post it in the chat. We already have over 100 people logging in. So I have everyone muted just to prevent any background distractions. So at any point, again, questions, just put them in the chat. You can also raise your hand. We might stop to take questions, and we can bring you off the mic if you have maybe an in-depth question you'd like to have answered. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Josh Gural. He's our O365 Product Manager, and he's going to be leading the discussion today about Copilot Enterprise. You may see other people in the chat as well from ITS. We have Rafael Supa may join us. He is our Manager of Messaging and Collaboration Services. And we also have Vinay Varghese. He's our Senior Technology Officer. So you may see their names in the chat just helping out today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to you, Josh. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vanessa. As you mentioned, my name is Josh Gural, Product Manager of Microsoft 365 here at Walgreens Medicine. Excited to be here. I'm going to pop my video off until Q&A just to save some bandwidth, but feel free to, like she said, raise your hand with any questions. I'm honored to give this talk here today. It's one of our first organization-wide AI initiatives, so I'm proud to be on this team. We're going to get started here with a number of slides. We're going to go pretty quickly through them to leave some room for demonstration at the end, but these slides will actually get you started. So the table of contents here, first and foremost, we're going to start with being safe with AI-powered chat, which I think is very important, of course, and the whole initiative, the point of this initiative. Next, how to get started. So where do you go to get started with Microsoft Copilot Enterprise? And then finally, getting the most out of Copilot Enterprise. So as you get started, you'll notice that there's some nuances to actually getting what you want out of Copilot Enterprise. And then finally, we won't talk through these in depth, but additional resources, some frequently asked questions, as well as some initial documentation will be listed at the end of the slides here that you'll get a copy of afterwards. So with that, we'll get started. First things first, what it is and what it isn't. I think this is super important. As some of you may know, not all Copilots are built the same. We are going to be talking here today about Copilot Enterprise. It is our commercial data protection version of Microsoft Copilot. There is also Copilot for Microsoft 365 and a number of other Copilots as well, but those are the main two at this point. Keep in mind, we are going to be talking about Copilot Enterprise, which is for current web data. It is the ChatGPT large language model, all those keywords we'll be talking about in a second. It does not have access to any corporate data. That is Copilot for Microsoft 365 on the right. Those are two distinct products. We have, and we'll be talking about the left one. We are not going to be discussing the right one today. So keep that in mind. Everything we're talking about here is Copilot Enterprise on the left with current web data, not internal work data. Okay, so again, kind of housekeeping notes, first and foremost, again, with data usage. Keep in mind, as per our data classification policy, which is linked there, once you get access to these slides, you can take a look, but I screenshotted kind of the most important information from our communication as well as from that documentation. We cannot use Copilot Enterprise here at WCM with regulated data, including HIPAA, FERPA, PII regulations. Anything that's listed in this chart as high or moderate risk should not be used. We are supposed to be using Copilot Enterprise safely with low risk type of data, as you'll see in that yellow box on the right. So with that, keep all of that in mind with the rest of the presentation. Everything I say has those two caveats in place. We are talking about public data, not internal data, and we are talking about being safe with data usage as per this screenshot here. With those two caveats in mind, let's get started with the fun stuff. So Copilot Enterprise. I have a note in there. It's formerly Bing Chat Enterprise. Most of everything has been scrubbed off the internet with Bing Chat Enterprise, but if you see that terminology, that is what we're talking about today. They went through a naming change. So just for the back of your mind there. And it is our protected, keyword there being protected, AI-powered web chat at Weill Cornell Medicine. So just to get started, you may have some questions on what is Copilot in general, what is AI in general. You may have heard in the news words like ChatGPT, Copilot. It was even on a commercial at the Super Bowl, if you saw that. Google has their own version. It's kind of all the rage lately. So just to start out with, artificial intelligence is computer systems capable of performing tasks that historically required human intelligence, and that'll be the theme across the whole the chat here today. ChatGPT, Google Bard, Google Gemini, I think it's called now, and Copilot Enterprise are all a AI-powered chatbot, if you will. Copilot Enterprise specifically gives you the power of doing all of those AI, ChatGPT things that we'll talk about here in a second, but doing it safely. So you can summarize long PDFs and articles, craft professional and customer ready content, as they say, and we'll see demonstrations about all of these things, but we'll do it safely, and we'll talk about what safe means. But non-approved AI web services, such as Google Gemini, ChatGPT, etc., can potentially expose our company data. So keep in mind that this is in an effort to give you the ability to use GPT-style content, but in a safe manner. So before we talk about the safety, we'll talk about what it can do for you. Copilot Enterprise, I've been using it for a while now in test phases, is a great new way to search and get answers. So rather than getting links, if you Google something, you'll get a series of links that you have to click on and read and analyze and make decisions based on. Copilot Enterprise gives you the answer, not the links. So in the table there, you can see that you can ask for a number of different topics. We're going to do demonstrations on pretty much all of those topics, but it's more conversational, right? So it's like asking somebody a question rather than Googling for a question. So it will give you custom-built answers based on its interpretation of data gathered from across the internet. I think this is one of the most important slides here in my deck. So why should we be using Copilot Enterprise? And there's really 4 answers for that. One, it gives you the latest and greatest powerful AI model. So for those of you that are more familiar with AI, ChatGPT 4, there's a paid tier of ChatGPT that gives you kind of the latest and greatest. Copilot Enterprise gives you that. So it's actually based on the same model ChatGPT is. So GPT-4 is what Copilot Enterprise uses. So it is the latest and greatest from ChatGPT. If you are currently paying for a license or using the free version of ChatGPT, you're going to see a similar experience here in Copilot because it is the same, right? It is built on the same platform. However, the next 3 is where it gets even beyond the ChatGPT capabilities. So that second box there, it is transparent about the sources, and this is one of my favorite options or favorite items. I mentioned before, it gives you answers and not links. And that's true about any AI model, but what Copilot Enterprise does additionally to that is gives you the information, the links that it used to come to that conclusion. So with any AI model, you need to double check. You need to be responsible for the answers it's providing. But with Copilot Enterprise, it gives you the links that it sourced that information from to make it easy to click through there, do a slow scroll, and say, is this information valid? Is this really what I'm looking for here? Additionally, it has no knowledge cutoff. So with some AI models, I believe ChatGPT is one of them, it cuts off in like September of last year, I believe is the date, somewhere around there. Copilot Enterprise, being based in the Microsoft ecosystem, has the most up-to-date answers based on internet results, right? So it has the ability to search and peruse live internet results, asking it questions about who won a sports games yesterday. It will answer, whereas other models may not because that information cuts off. So this is the latest and greatest. as far as the amount of information it has access to. And then finally, and probably most importantly here for a business perspective, commercial data protection. Copilot does not save any prompts, it does not save any answers, and it does not use anything, prompt or answer, to train its large language model. So everything is contained, if you will. There is no eyes on it from our perspective to Microsoft's perspective, anything like that. So whereas if you would use ChatGPT, Google Gemini, etc., that may be training the large language model, depending on what tier you have. So this is why this solution, especially for a business perspective, is definitely the preferred option. Access Copilot. A lot of these slides are from Microsoft, and I was going to kind of modify this one, but I decided against it to give you, the most information possible. So it says access it in 5 places. There's been some changes to that, and I want you to be aware of them. The first one being bing.com/chat. That is the old name. You may see some documentation like this from Microsoft say bing.com/chat. Don't use it, because if you bookmark it, it's going to go away. So the replacement there is copilot.microsoft.com. Bing.com/chat may work for you today. As you go through some documentation, especially from Microsoft, we have gone through and updated the naming. Microsoft may not have because it's technically still live. I do not recommend using that. Definitely always use copilot.microsoft.com so you don't have to change down the road. Additionally, in all that documentation, you'll see a bunch of information on Windows Copilot. That is also not what we're discussing today. While there is some overlaps with what we'll be discussing today, that is still a preview product. So it is not available as of yet. So the 3 places from a WCM perspective you can access Copilot is copilot.microsoft.com on the web, the Microsoft Edge sidebar, and finally, in Microsoft Edge or the Copilot app on mobile. Those are the 3 main areas to access Copilot, and we'll talk more about all of those in a minute. So I mentioned copilot.microsoft.com. It's available on all major browsers. However, there is a distinct reason you would want to use Microsoft Edge as described in this chart. I'm going to talk about a couple of them. The main one you want to look at here is that kind of middle section, web page or PDF summarization. The way you can interact with that feature of Copilot at the current time is through the Microsoft Edge browser. Microsoft Edge is based in Chromium nowadays. So if you're using Google Chrome day to day, you will notice a very minor difference because it is based in the same technology as Microsoft Edge now. It is not the old Microsoft Edge. It is definitely not Internet Explorer. It's actually pretty good. I use it day to day. So I recommend if you want to take full advantage of Copilot Enterprise to use it in Microsoft Edge with the sidebar. You'll get the most bang for your buck there. However, it is excuse me, it is available on all major browsers. And here you can see Google Chrome, but works in Safari and Firefox and other browsers as well. Okay, just want to take a pause here for 1 second, just peruse. Looks like Vinay's got my back on all those questions, so we're good. Awesome, thank you, Vinay. Double check in time too, I think we're pretty good. Okay, so plowing forward. Protect our data, we kind of already talked about this, so I'm just going to summarize. You do have to log in to Copilot to get all of these features. It is a super important part of Copilot Enterprise, and we'll talk about how to make sure you're signed in. But being in the work account is where you get the full features of our protection under all of our policies, procedures, and the fact that it is discarded, as you see at the end there. And we'll talk about making sure you're in the right version in a second. No human eyes. I can't see it as an admin. Microsoft can't see it as the provider. Nobody sees anything after you sign in because the data is actually encrypted before it's sent off. It's not visible by any human, which is the point, right? We want to make sure that the information you put in there is protected. And finally, it's discarded, and we'll talk about that in more detail as well. But the prompts and answers are discarded at the end of the session. There should be no expectation of retention with this service. If you get something, information that you want to copy paste somewhere, do it before you leave the browser. If you go back in, there should be no expectation it'll be there. It may be for a short, minor period of time, but it may not. It may be cleared, and that's by design. Also, it does not train the AI model, the underlying AI model, making sure that it's totally secure and private. Okay, now that the sales pitch is out of the way and the legality type stuff or policy type stuff, let's talk about how to get started for real, with some getting you logged in and getting you actually using the service. First and foremost, I can't stress this enough, and I'll probably say it a couple more times. Make sure you're signed in with your work account. So step one, go to copilot.microsoft.com. Again, I recommend Edge. You could use a different browser if you prefer. And make sure you are signed in, and you'll know you're signed in with that green protected icon. And I'll talk about this a couple other times. The protected tag is what you're looking for and should be kind of what you glance at before you put any content into Copilot. If you do not see that green protected logo next to number 2 on the right, you will not be safe, to put it bluntly. So make sure you see that protected tag. Otherwise, you are in the commercial version of Copilot, not Copilot Enterprise. That's probably one of the more important slides here. That green protected will be your friend. So once you get signed in with your WCM Seaweed at copilot.microsoft.com, you will see something like we have on the screen here. Again, first and foremost, top right, you want to see that protected badge. There's also another additional protected queue, potentially, depending on your browser, on the bottom there that says your company and personal, or your personal and company data are protected in this chat. Those two are the keys. Everything else you can play with, you can have fun, you can ask it silly questions, whatever, but those two things are critical. Making sure you have those two things. The kind of suggested prompts there at the top is a good place to start. If you're really not sure where to ask, you're kind of having writer's block sitting there looking at a screen, that'll give you some popular, I'll call them, things that some people ask. It may not have anything to do with your job description. It may not have anything to do with your personal life either, but give it a go. You know, click on one of them just for fun, see how it works. It's a great starting place to click and interact with it, and to start chatting and see how it works. Conversation styles is another thing that's important. I typically leave it in the middle there for balanced, but you can switch its conversation style, similar to changing somebody's personality, if you will. You can make it more creative if you're doing kind of marketing type content or just, you know, having fun with it. Balanced is kind of middle ground, and then precise will be more serious. It'll be more professional. It'll be more logical, I guess, with the answers. Text box right at the bottom, kind of self-explanatory. That's where you will enter your prompt, and we'll talk in the next slide about how to build a nice prompt, or a complete prompt, I should say. And then finally, the start a new chat button. As you'll see on the screen, when you're in a chat, you'll have 30 back and forth responses there. And that's actually good. You should take advantage of that. If you ask it a question at first, you don't get what you're looking for, kind of clarify your question with additional prompts. And you can do that for up to 30 interactions. But that button there will be kind of refreshing Copilot. It'll clear all of that information and start fresh. It'll not use, obviously, any of your history to further tweak that information. Okay. So what is a prompt? This is kind of key to being able to use Copilot, is to be able to ask it questions. Prompt is the question you're going to be giving Copilot Enterprise. It's that thing you put into the Ask Me Anything box. It's, you know, very similar to like the Google search box, right? But the key here is you do not want to ask it Google type questions, right? You want to ask it more detailed questions than you would in just a normal box, if you will, a normal Google box. You want to use natural language. You want to use complete sentences. You want to make sure that you're giving it enough information that it's going to give you the information back that is what you're really looking for. And the only way to do that is to tell it. So for instance, instead of saying just a question like, what is a VLOOKUP? You might want to ask it, what is a VLOOKUP in regards to Microsoft Excel, because there's also Google Sheets and other types of services, to make sure it's very specific. It's going to assume if you just give it kind of that normal Google type prompt, but there should be no expectation that it really knows what you're doing or what you're looking for. If you ask it that and it gives you something like Google Sheets, you can then ask in a separate prompt, give me this in regards to Excel. right? So you can kind of tweak it in further prompts. However, it's best to do it as kind of a first pass to get the information you're looking for. And to further kind of discuss what makes an effective prompt, I think this is a pretty nice summary slide. You want to make sure it's specific but detailed, right? So make sure it isn't all over the place. Ask a very specific question and give it as much information as possible. Use full sentences. This is something different than a Google, right? You might just Google a single word. With Copilot, you really want to talk to it like it's a human, right? Use proper grammar, use proper English, use proper descriptions, because it's going to take that nuance and make assumptions based on it, right? Just like a human would. It might change its answer based on how you're phrasing something or how you're connecting words together, things like that. And make sure you state the tone, purpose, and preferred format. And we'll talk about those a little bit more down the road. But tone, for instance, you can literally say, give this to me in a jovial format, or give this to me in a professional format, or preferred format, give this to me in exactly 2 paragraphs, or exactly 3 bullet points. Depending on what you're looking for, you have a thought in mind of what you really want. Tell Copilot that so you can make sure that what you're getting back is in the format you want. And you can see the example there compared to the less effective option, right? So a less effective option would be it's vague. It has too few words, or it has no context on the preferred output. It'll just respond to you like a human might. But you might tell it, hey, I don't want the full summary of this, just give me a couple bullet points. And it can do that, but you have to let it know. And again, I think the option at the bottom there is really important too, right? There's no wrong prompts. So, don't use this as a barrier to get started. This is a learning exercise. There's whole LinkedIn learning classes on how to build an effective prompt. So go in and ask it questions. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to ask it incomplete things. That's fine. That's what the 30 or 29 other messages in that thread are for. But the best way to get familiar with it is to practice. So give it some test questions, even if it has nothing to do with your job description again, or even your personal life. Just ask it some test questions and see how it responds, and then make some tweaks to it as you move forward. We are kind of talking about number 1 at this point. We're going to jump into number 2, which is one of the better features of Copilot Enterprise compared to other services, in my opinion, is check your sources. You'll see here a screenshot of a response that it gave, which doesn't really matter in this case, but the point I'm showing here is the Learn More section. That Learn More section has number 1, number 2, and 2 more, it says, of the internet locations that it used to format that prompt. So if you're using this for a business use case, or any use case for that matter, you're responsible for the content that your AI provides. So it might be worthwhile to click through those links. If you're looking at it and you're like, something doesn't seem right, or you're looking at it and I don't know about this one particular line, you can click through those links, do a slow scroll through them, and see where it's coming up with that information, just to make sure that it's accurate. I've tested a number of other AI chatbots, and it doesn't do this. I love this feature because it gives you the ability to say, here's my answer and here's where I got the answer from, and you as the human can go in and double check that and make sure that you're on board with what it says. Okay. Seeing some questions in the chat there, but we're actually going to get there in a second. So I'll just keep going for now. So we already talked about this, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but keep in mind it has a short-term memory. There should be no expectation of privacy when it comes to, or privacy, that's not the word I was looking for. There should be an expectation of privacy. There should be no expectation of retention when it comes to Copilot Enterprise. So you will not see any chat history saved when it comes to Copilot Enterprise. Make sure you take the information you need from it before you move on. Now we're going to talk quickly about how to get the most out of Copilot Enterprise. So at first we talked about how to be safe. We talked about how to get logged in. Now we're going to talk about how to best get some feedback and how best to get started. This slide might be good for reference, gives you kind of some helpful hints, if you will, on how to get started. If your day is one of these things, if you're trying to perform one of these tasks, here's how you can get started with asking Copilot a prompt, if you will. So I like the last one, right? So you got multiple articles with different perspectives and you're trying to make a decision. You can ask Copilot to compare it. And again, keep in mind, you might want to compare it in 3 bullet points to see if these 2 articles are worth reading. You might want to give me the pros and cons of this article in a table format, things like that. Effective prompts will be your friend in that case. We talked about this too, sample prompts. Even if this has no purpose to your day-to-day life, no purpose to your personal life even, I recommend using them. Again, none of this is saved, so after you navigate it away, it's not going to be tracked in any sort of way. Use this to just get familiar with Copilot. Maybe you want to click on the button that says, what are some tips for taking notes in class? If you're not a student, that may have no need for your day-to-day life, but use it to get started and ask it questions after the fact and just see how it works if you're having trouble thinking of a prompt to start with. This, I think, is one of the most powerful features of Copilot Enterprise. You can summarize web pages, PDFs, and documents. Again, as I mentioned before, this has to be open in the Microsoft Edge browser. That is the only area where this is accessible. So, PDFs can be opened in Edge just like they can be opened in Chrome. Obviously, web pages can be opened in Edge. So if you open a PDF, either local or on the web in Microsoft Edge, you can ask it questions in reference to that open PDF or in reference to that open web page. I use this all the time for summarizing like how-to articles or new releases from Microsoft, just to say, I wonder if this article is really what I'm looking for. I can say, summarize the purpose of this article in 3 bullet points. I can read those 3 bullet points, and then if that is true, if that is what I'm looking for, I can then go through and read the whole thing. It may not be. If it's not, then it just saved me the time of reading that and I can move forward. I love this feature, use it all the time, and I think you'll like it as well. Only caveat is you'd have to use Microsoft Edge for this. This is another great use case for Copilot Enterprise, is to give you a draft of an email or a LinkedIn post or a Teams message or whatever. You can say, generate me an email for so-and-so relating to this topic, or in 3 bullet points or what have you. Keep in mind, again, with our data protection and classification policies take effect here. But I think this is a great way to get started. Gives you kind of a starting point to paste in and modify. So you're not just looking at a blank page. You kind of get something to start with, and then you can tweak it to your tone and your content. And as you're getting started with Copilot, I highly recommend, again, only in the Microsoft Edge browser, but I highly recommend this compose template. In the right-hand add-on sidebar, that's the word I'm looking for, section of Microsoft Edge, it gives you the ability to enter a prompt that may not be as full as you want it to be, but it then asks you specific questions of how to build that prompt. So it's kind of like a prompt builder, if you will. You put in basically what you want to talk about, as you can see in that that bullet 2 there. But then it asks you, what tone do you want it in? What format do you want it in? And how long do you want it? You can type all of those things to Copilot without the prompt builder. But this is just a way to kind of keep you on track of, all right, it's going to want to know the tone, or it's going to assume the format, and it's going to assume the length unless you tell it. So this is a great way to get started, to say, to learn, I guess I should say, how to build effective prompts, especially for people that aren't familiar with prompt building in general. We're running slightly behind, so I'll finish out these couple slides and then we'll do a couple of demos. So visual search is possible. You'll get these slides after the fact. So if you want to add an image, that does work. I've tested this. It's actually pretty good. If you have a handwritten whiteboard note that you want to take a picture of and then have Copilot do some analysis on, I've tested that. The OCR isn't perfect. Optical character recognition is basically what it does to take the handwriting from the image and put it into the prompt. It actually works pretty well, but keep in mind the data privacy and protection policies with that. But I've tested it with some innocuous data. Works super well. I was actually impressed. And then once you have that image in there, you can have it do some analysis based on that, just like a PDF. Image creation, I did see that in the chat. there is image creation. The best experience you're going to have for that is actually not in the sidebar. It's just at copilot.microsoft.com. And you can have it generate a picture of a smiling shark jumping out of a coffee cup, and it does it. This is something that it's truly creating. So it's kind of interesting. There are obviously some guardrails in there that it will not do anything insensitive, for lack of a better word. But and not even just that, it limits some of the people you might put in, so it doesn't like to put specific individuals, celebrities, things like that. It's trying to be responsible with its AI image creation. So be pretty generic with those requests, but I've found that it works pretty good. In fact, I had it generate a bunch of people circling around a Copilot logo smiling, and it worked. And I actually used that for a number of my presentations, so it works pretty good. We kind of talked about all of these, so I'm going to skip this slide here, but great way to do all of those things. If you want some inspiration on how to get started with Copilot, here's some good examples of how to get started and what things to ask it. And that's it. You now have all the information you need to get started. I will say this is not all of the slides. There are some additional resources here. I recommend going through these at your own time. Has some frequently asked questions from Microsoft on this, which I think are pretty handy. And the most important thing in additional resources, I think, is this last slide here. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this. If you're having any issues when it comes to Edge and interacting with web content, you might need to enable that feature if it's not enabled already. So keep this in mind. You will be getting the slides after the fact, but this is a setting you'll need to change if you want to interact with PDFs and web pages in the Edge browser. So I only have a couple of demos here because with AI, there will be 2 brains to get messed up in a live demo, not just mine. So I'm not going to do a ton of demo because
Hey, Josh, I just wanted
yeah,
to respond to a series of questions that have come up.
Sure, go ahead.
It seems like people are having issues with getting to Copilot on browsers on NYP computers. This is something that we had not tested extensively, and for that, I do apologize to folks. We will speak to our colleagues at NYP and get back to folks here. This seems to be an issue specifically in Edge. Someone mentioned that you could use copilot.microsoft.com on a Chrome browser on an NYP machine. We have not done enough testing on this. We will get back to folks about that. The other pattern of questions that I'm detecting is that we're not licensed to use Copilot with Microsoft 365 at this time. So even if you want to try to hack it by using Copilot with Microsoft 365 Web, it will not work as far as I know. Josh, I assume that's the case. You can't open up an Excel spreadsheet in the web version and have Copilot summarize that.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, you can
So
export it as a PDF, but correct.
the only option you have right now to review documents is to have PDFs open in Copilot, and you can have it act on those PDFs.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I did see a couple of options questions for the notebook tab, and one just came in as well. So I'll start that. I'll start my demo with that. Copilot and then notebook on the top here. This is a great way to interact with something that you're going to either, number one, have a longer prompt, or number two, have a lot of iterations with. So this would be good for if you're drafting a big long article or paper or something. You'll see this versus this has 2,000 character limit. This goes all the way up to 18,000. So if you have a larger prompt, notebook's going to be your friend. Also, this content will kind of appear side by side. So you could say, here's my big long prompt. Give me all of the typos and it'll fix it over here, or summarize how many times I use the word it'll summarize it over here for you. So it's more of a collaborative, like back and forth type mentality, whereas this is more of a search type mentality. You get the information and move on. So Copilot here would be useful if you have kind of simple prompts up to the 2,000 character limit. Notebook will go above that up to 18,000 if you need. That's a good question. I will say a couple of things while I'm looking at the notes. This does take a second. So for an example of what you can ask it here, I asked what's the syntax of VLOOKUP. I use this all the time. I don't remember the syntax of all the Excel things that go on. So rather than Google it, find a help article that has somebody intelligent enough to write and also know the technology. I just ask it, hey, what's the syntax for VLOOKUP? And it gives me that. Nice breakdown of which required fields exist, what optional fields exist, and then again, also at the very end, what links it used. So you can see it cross-referenced not only a Microsoft support article, but a number of other articles to make sure its information it's providing is handy. And it links each one of those up here as well. I love that feature. I use it all the time for kind of syntax related things, even in Excel, if you can't remember the certain syntax of something. But keep in mind that's only one of a number of prompts I can ask it, right? So it's giving me some, based on that content, some additional information, right? So what's the difference between a VLOOKUP and an HLOOKUP? That might be my logical next question. So it'll go ahead and compare those for me. And notice it's giving me that syntax too in a nice copy pastable format. And then finally, I can say, type of format I want, and it's going to build that table for me in real time. I use this all the time, super handy, especially for taking this information and then pasting it into a presentation or an article or something like that. So that's kind of what I was driving at as the prompt builder. I could have said that at the beginning. Maybe I don't know that, right? Maybe I don't know that I want it in a table format because I don't even know what it is to begin with. So that's why I was mentioning your prompt building. Do not be worried about getting it right the first time. That's why you have those 30 chats, if you will, back and forth in that one topic, right? So I can say, that's great information. Rather than copy and paste that, which will take me a solid 30 minutes back and forth, it's doing that for me here, and I can click this button, edit it in Excel, and I'm done. Super handy. Bullet format, 2 paragraphs, write it in the form of a haiku if you wanted to, but the format is a very nice feature to have. Another option for table, again, I'm going to switch topics. So I want to tell it to switch topics. Not required, but if I don't, it's going to think that I'm talking about all of this stuff with my new topic. So I always like to give it started. I'm going to stay in balanced. I'm going to say create a table comparing the specifications of a MacBook Air and a Surface Laptop 4. So it's going to search the internet for me. I don't have to click through all of these links. It's going to summarize this for me. So I can just take a look at, what do I want? Do I want a MacBook Air? Do I want a laptop 4? But again, unlike some of the other Google Gemini and ChatGPT features, I don't necessarily have the ability to, okay, it's $9.99 to $16.49. I want to go further. I can click here to laptopmag.com or nanoreview.net and get more information. This is going to be the summary. This is probably what I would create if I was manually doing this. So it's going to do that work for you, but then you can still go into the articles and double check everything. That is correct. When you click this button, everything goes away. So it's totally gone at this point. I cannot get it back. As an administrator, I can't help you. It is gone. So be sure to copy on any information you want. You can obviously re-ask it. Because it is artificial intelligence, it may not give you the exact same answer. It might, because it might use the same resources. The internet hasn't largely changed on this topic since I asked it last time. But there should be no expectation that this should be the exact same answer as before. And furthermore, because of that, you can actually tell it to like or dislike this. So is this the answer I was looking for? Yes or no? This will help train kind of your idea within this context of what you're looking for. And if you're going to ask it more information, it does not train the model itself. So nothing goes to Microsoft, nothing goes to me, nothing goes anywhere.
Josh, I want to respond to something here, which people may not have asked. You will notice in Josh's query that it now has surfaced some ads. This is the other concern that we have had with Microsoft, and there's no way for us to turn this off. Even though your query is private within Microsoft, it is, because it's hitting the public web, it is returning advertising here. This is the other reason why we don't want you to use any protected data. any Weill Cornell, PHI, PII, etc. This is something that we've been unable to turn off with Microsoft and is causing us some concern. But we've been assured that your data is still private, even though it is generating ads through this. This is not something that we have been able to get Microsoft to turn off on our behalf. Other institutions are concerned about this as well, but we want
Great.
you to know that this is something that Microsoft will occasionally return. It's not maintaining a history of your preferences, so it's not going to create an advertising profile for you when you start a new search. It's starting anew.
That is a great call out, and it's depending on the type of question I ask it to, right? So that first question on VLOOKUP, it didn't have that. Because I'm asking it about products, it's trying to be helpful, but in our case, not necessarily. I'm running kind of short on time, so I wanted to show a couple of interesting things here to convert that table to CSV formats possible. I'm not going to actually do it, but you could convert it to CSV, to HTML, to whatever. So if you have a specific item that you want to convert, it can do that for you, and that's very handy if you need to like import something into a CSV or whatever. But I wanted to move on to the use case, get that out of my way, of interacting with a website, right? So I have Microsoft Edge open on my Mac. It is Mac or PC compatible, or mobile for that matter. And I just have a article open about Copilot. If I click on this little button here, again, make sure I have protected. That is key. It also shows it here. And I can ask it questions such as, quiz me on this open web page. So before I go into a meeting with Vinay, who is highly technical and asks me hard questions, I can have this quiz me on this web page. So it will say, okay, here's a quiz that I've created custom right now on this topic. And notice that these answers may be a little slower because it's actually analyzing the page as it's writing. So it needs to do this. There is not a button like this for Chrome. This is Edge only. But like I mentioned, Edge is based in Chrome. So if you've had bad experiences with Edge in the past, I think those should be rectified now. You can also say, generate me an answer key. So instead of looking through that, it'll actually tell me the answer of all the questions it asked. And note, because I haven't clicked new topic, it knew that I meant this previous prompt. So this prompt exists in the context of this environment, but when I hit this button, it's gone. Similarly, I'll have this here. You can say, summarize this web page. So notice this is a web page on how to activate Copilot to existing account. And notice they even had a typo in here, Microsoft 364, which I had a good chuckle about. It's going to analyze that and provide me a summary based on this information. And the other cool thing that I actually only learned about a month ago or so now, which I find very handy, is, thank you, Copilot, but I got the point. If you have a YouTube video or any video in general, I opened up this one that we did in the past for Visio for the web. You can actually have it summarize the open video. So it's going to take a look at this, the content of this video based on closed captioning and what have you, and it's going to give you timestamps of what it's talking about at each point of this video. For long videos, this is super handy. Not all YouTube videos or videos in general have this kind of what is Visio, how to use Visio kind of markers. This is a great way to kind of see in the video what's going on at each specific timestamp, skip all of the nonsense and go straight to the information you're looking for. I use this all the time too for some training type things. I don't want to hear your intro. I don't really care. That's why I didn't really give you a big intro on myself. I just want to know what's going on. And that's a great way to do it. In Copilot, this is going to show the more nerdier side of me, but when I was in high school, I was part of this research paper for totally not things related to technology, but I'm using this one because as you can see, no, I don't want to email that person. As you can see, I'm listed as an author here, so I feel like I can use it in a demo. So in here, I can have it remove all numbers from this list of names. So you can see there's kind of footnotes for all of these names. I use this a lot for alphabetize these listed names or sort this list of names in group by this list of names, anything you can think of. Rather than do that with some sort of formula in Excel, this is so much easier. So you can see this format is kind of garbage. This format is nice, and I didn't have to do any sort of Excel formatting, any sort of Notepad++ nonsense. I just asked it what I wanted it to do, and it formats it for me. You can also say, and I just have 2 more left. I know we're 1 minute over. So it's going to alphabetize that by name, or group by, and alphabetize that by name. Super handy. You don't have to think about how to do that in Excel or Notepad++. It just does it, right? And then while that's doing that, finally, an example of a PDF. This could be open in the web here, or it could be open from your desktop. You know how you can open PDFs on your desktop here. If I open that file location, other window can open it. Right click, open with Edge. So either way, doesn't matter. You can have Copilot generate page summary. So this will give you a example or a taste of what this article is about. Whoops, that's the wrong article. I didn't hit new topic. See, always hit new topic. This will be kind of a lot, and it might take a second to generate all this because this is a big, long document, right? But if I would have asked it in 3 bullet points, that might be more handy to see if I actually want to read this whole thing. Or if I wanted to ask it, summarize this in exactly 2 paragraphs, things like that. That would be something I can do as well that's handy. Things like that. I'm trying to do like 3 things at once and also take a look at your questions here. There is not a query limit per day. There is a query limit on topic, just because once it gets to 30, for data protection purposes, it wants you to refresh, right? So there is a 30 limit per topic, but there is not a limit per day. So you can ask as many as you want per day. You are able to upload PDF, and it's not really upload. You can upload a picture. That's one thing, and you can analyze an open web page or a PDF. That's the options that are available, all of which are available in Edge. Yes, tips and tricks. We're working on it. We're kind of feeding you from the fire hose here at this point, but there will be much more to come on this, and all of these slides and everything will be possible down the road as well, or available down the road as well. You'll get an email from Vanessa. Output to a CSV file. Yeah, so anything you ask it, you can ask it to generate a format, right? So if you say, generate me a table of that comparison between Mac and Surface, you can say export or generate this as a CSV instead. It'll literally be a comma separated file, or not a file, but the text you can copy and paste, if you will. So if you want it to be in an HTML format, CSV format, XML format, JSON format, just ask it that and copy and paste it into that type of file.
Josh, I just wanted to quickly say something before people log off. First
Sure.
of all, thank you for doing a great presentation here. I think this was really informative and gives people a sense of what Copilot is capable of. Second, if you are using, or especially if you're paying for some other AI service, stop. You don't need to. Most of the services of ChatGPT Plus, etc., are available for you through this Copilot Enterprise. We strongly discourage you from paying for other services when this does most of what you will see in the other products. These products are all different, but if you are on the Copilot site and you log in with your CUID, you should have the latest access to all of the different LLMs with updated data at your disposal. Also, because this gives you the privacy protections, whether you're using this for personal reasons or for work, this is a better option than going to the public free AI services. If you have any questions, please let us know and we can help you address, get you answers. We're all figuring out how these tools work and how best to use it in the work environment. So we will be figuring some of this out on our own, hopefully with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. This was super helpful. Really amazing to see some of these examples. I just wanted to let everybody in the chat know, because this came up a few times, I'm going to put together a summary of the questions and the answers that have been going on in the chat. I don't want to send you the raw file from Zoom because it's not the cleanest formatting. So I'll be sure to send a summary of those answers. And I know that there are some questions still going on in the chat. I plan to send that over to Josh, Vinay, and Raphael so I can get some answers for you. And hopefully, if you've got any more questions after that, you can just reply to the follow-up email I send out that's going to have the slides, the link to this recording, and some other helpful information to get you started with using Copilot Enterprise. I know we went a little over. Thank you so much for staying on. It was just a lot of information and really cool examples to cover. But again, there seems to be a lot of interest in some tips and tricks. Hopefully we can, give that to you in the future. And again, if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out and reply to that email I send, and I'll be sure to direct you to the appropriate person to help you out. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at another Tech Tuesday, hopefully. Have a great one.
Thanks, guys.